Is limerence the same thing as lust? What is limerence? What is lust? How are they similar? How are they different? And how do you know if that's what you're feeling? Or if you're a husband, how do you know if that's what your wife's feeling for someone else? That's what we're covering today in this video. Hi, I'm Jeff Campbell from DivorcedParentsClub.com, and I'm glad you're here with me today in this video and on my channel. So first, let's define what is limerence. Limerence is an obsession with someone else. It's an obsessive state of mind. It's a little bit different than love. It's a little bit different than lust, but you've got tunnel vision for this other person. They're all you can think about. They're all you want to be. All your other priorities fall second to being around this person. You ignore all the other priorities in your life, your kids, your job, your spouse. Everything else comes second to this other person. And it's not always sexual. It's not necessarily a sexual thing. It is usually a romantic thing, but it's different than lust in that it's not purely sexual. You're craving their attention. You're craving being around them. You're obsessed with getting their affection. You need them to breathe. That's how it feels for the person who is experiencing limerence. So what is lust then? By comparison, lust is purely sexual usually. We're talking about, you see somebody that's really attractive and you start having sexual fantasies about them. You're thinking about them in a physical way. Maybe you don't even know anything about them from an emotional or intellectual level. It's purely physical. You see them, you lust after them in this kind of obsessive way. But it's not the same thing as limerence. And the other thing to note about lust is that it may not get acted on. You might just see an attractive woman at the grocery store and start thinking about what it would be like to have sex with her, but you're not actually acting on it. Maybe you're married or in a relationship with somebody and you're not looking for that, but you have those lustful thoughts, let's call them that. So that's another key difference. With limerence, you almost can't help but try and act on your feelings. With lust, it's not necessarily ever going to get acted on. Real quick before we keep going, if you like this video and you want to see more videos like it, boop that like button and then smash the subscribe button and the bell notification too. And if you have an idea for a future video, leave me that in the comments down below. So how do you know if it's limerence? And again, we could be talking about ourselves. Maybe you're wondering if you're experiencing limerence, but more likely you're maybe married or in a relationship with a woman and you're wondering if they're in limerence with someone else. So how do you actually know? The person who is experiencing limerence literally almost can't focus on anything else. They become forgetful and other things that they used to love doing, friends, working out, things like that, all fall away, all fall to the bottom of the priority list. Taking care of the kids suffers as well. And then their attention on you, if we're talking about your wife or your girlfriend, their attention on you has definitely waned. They have tunnel vision for this other person and they almost can't think about anything else. The other thing that is common with limerence is they almost experience pain when they're not with what's called the limerent object, the person that they are desiring, their affair partner if they're actually having a full-blown affair. The limerent object, when they're not around them, they're experiencing pain and anguish, and in a very real and physical way and an emotional way as well. Now we know from research that limerence has an expiration date. It always ends. It never lasts really unless it somehow grows beyond limerence. But limerence in and of itself is not enough to sustain a relationship. Unfortunately, it's kind of a wide range in terms of how long it actually lasts for. It can last as little as 3 months and it can go up to 18 months. And I know that's a wide range. I do have a few other videos on this subject, and in one of those I get into how to know where you're at in the stages of limerence, or your partner is in the stages of limerence, and that way you can kind of gauge how close you are or how close they are to the actual end of that experience. So I'm going to link to that video down below. You'll also see a card for it at the end of this video, but definitely watch that video if you're not sure where you're at or where your spouse or girlfriend is at on that range of limerence, so you can better know whether it's worth your time to wait around or not, and see if it ends, and when it does end, see if they come back to you. By comparison though, lust is fleeting. Lust doesn't last at all. Now that's not to say that lust can't grow from lust into infatuation, into a crush, and then eventually love, it definitely could do those things. But lust, like I said earlier, is purely physical. It's purely sexual. There's no intellectual component. There's no emotional component. You may not have even met the person in real life yet, and you can't actually build a relationship solely off of those feelings. But if the other things begin to fall into place after those feelings of lust, you definitely could build a relationship on that. Now, I mentioned that limerence always has an expiration date. However, it is possible for that to grow into actual genuine love. But what's going to happen is those feelings, those endorphins, that rush of hormones that the person is feeling when they're in limerence, that will subside, that will go down, that will normalize. And when that happens, most of the time, you begin to really see the flaws in the other person that you weren't seeing before. You literally weren't seeing them. And when you see those flaws, and then you also realize everything that you've given up to be with this person, a lot of the time, the person who is experiencing limerence regrets their choice, and then they begin to back off, or they end the relationship altogether. Maybe they go back to the spouse or the boyfriend or girlfriend that they were with before that. Maybe that's what they do. However, it is possible for the limerence to grow into something more quote unquote real. In most cases, it's going to work far better if the person who's experiencing limerence wasn't having an affair. In other words, they didn't leave somebody else to be with this new person. They just met this new person and they started experiencing those feelings of limerence, because then you're not going to be filled with the regret of having ended something else to be with them. And when the limerence begins to lower and those hormones come back down and you start to see their flaws, hopefully they don't have so many flaws that it's a deal breaker. You begin to see them in a more realistic light, because all of us have flaws. All of us make mistakes. And when you see them in a more realistic light, if their flaws aren't huge and insurmountable, then you can begin to build a real relationship on top of what was initially those feelings of limerence. But I will say that doesn't actually happen very often. Most of the time, limerence has an expiration date, and then the relationship comes crashing and burning. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please leave me a comment down below and tell me what you thought. Tell me if you're experiencing limerence, or if your spouse or girlfriend is experiencing limerence, and what you did about it, or what they did about it, and how it worked out. I'll see you in the next video.